Hello, and welcome to the Champ We Are United podcast, the number one football comic podcast. I am your host, Matt Mute Button Richards. Welcome to episode 96.
Woohoo!
Woo.
Yay!
That's not bad. That's not bad. Um, let's introduce you to my co-host for today's show. And so this is fantastic news for listeners. He's back. It's like the ghost from Christmas past. It's the ghost from podcast past. It's Simmo. Hi, Simmo.
Hi Matt, how you doing?
Doing really well. Doing really well. It's good to see you back, mate. Good to see you back.
Yeah, I would love to say that I'm new and improved, but I think it's more a case of older, flatter, and slightly more broken. But,
Brilliant
yeah,
stuff.
either way, I've made it.
Good, good. It's
After all,
good.
many technical difficulties now resolved.
Well, I'm glad we had the our IT experts on it, and we've got those kind of fixed and those cables fixed. That's good
Yeah, I
stuff.
could do with another bag of coal though, if you can arrange it, please.
Excellent. Next we have, well, it's the man who even Trevor Brinsden think he's going in a bit strong on Roy Race. It's Neil Bygone Brinsden Berrigan.
You all right? Hello, everybody. Hope everybody got what they wished for Christmas and
Yeah,
are
exactly.
enjoying Boxing Day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is due to go out. Just guys, just pretend. I know it's not Christmas yet. I know, but this is going out on Boxing Day. So just pretend we've had Christmas. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I hope everyone's having a really good Boxing Day, and got all the presents they wanted. Did you, Neil, get all the presents you wanted?
Yeah. Santa was very kind. I got everything I wanted. Yeah, bought myself some nice presents and
Good, good stuff. All right. And then finally, it's the tangential one. Yes, it's our very own John Watson in his red and yellow sheepskin coat. It's Paul Tangent Richardson. Hello, Paul.
Hi, Matt. Thanks very much. Sorry, I was chuckling away there when you asked Gold Berrigan what he got for Christmas. And you're right, he didn't mention that he got the number one Trevor Brinsden fan letter, did he, when he signed up to the membership? I think Roy out on the back page was the headline.
Yeah. Did you have a good Christmas? Paul, just pretend. Just
I,
pretend it.
I'm having a fantastic Christmas,
Oh,
and
okay.
I got one of my presents, and that's to see the voice of reason back on the pod.
Well,
Oh,
Doesn't get any better than that.
it does. All of our dreams have come true, eh? This is what we
Exactly.
this is what we were hoping for underneath that Christmas tree. Not necessarily
Exactly.
Simo, but
I wouldn't fit underneath that Christmas tree, trust me.
You haven't seen the size of my tree, Simo.
Yeah,
promises.
unfortunately, at my age, my balls are for decoration only.
He's
Uh,
back. He's
he's back.
back.
Before this descends into even further lower levels of depravity. Unfortunately, as you can tell, Gull's not here. But hold on a second. A call's coming in. Hold on a second.
Thanks, mute button. Can you hear me? It's quite loud here. I'm here with Dot Cotton. Oh, I say, I'm here with Gull. It's our Christmas party. Wishing everyone a happy Christmas. Thanks, Dot. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, mute? Back to you.
Well. I mean, that's well, obviously, someone's having a better time than
Yeah.
us, really.
I
Yeah.
wonder what present Gull just got.
I was just saying, hold on, I didn't realise there was a pod Christmas party, but apparently only Go and Dot got invited.
Well, I know.
Yeah, I think a certain Mr. Boris Johnson probably arranged it. You know, it was kept secret.
Right. Better move on before we get ourselves into more trouble. But yeah, well, Dot, Gull, hope you're having a great time. We're missing you here, but sounds like you're having a good time anyway. Yeah. So that's the lineup for today's show. Let's go through the running order. So shortly, I'll be doing social media feedback. Then I'm going to give you some details of some preparation or some work actually we'd like you listeners to do actually for us, and that's for our 100th episode, which is coming up not very long. We've probably around about February, sometime around there, because this is episode 96. So anyway, I'll cover that later. Then we have, well, he's back. Simmo, what are you doing for us?
Well, I thought I will go for the one little area that I do actually have something to offer, and that is to go right back to the start of the We Are United story, rather than jumping in doing random, excerpts here and there. I thought we'd go right back to day one and go through the whole thing. It's not a particularly long story, in comparison to the likes of Royal Rovers. So I think we should be able to get it finished before we all end up in a nursing home.
Yeah, well, let's see how we get on with that. But yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. We are, after all, the We Are United podcast. So it's only right that we, on a regular basis, we kind of follow that storyline. So I'm really looking forward to that, Simmo. So it's great to have you back doing that. Then next we are, yes, it's still going on, and Tangent Richardson.
Yeah,
we know what you're going to do, but I'm going to ask you anyway. I don't know why I'm asking.
Breaking news. It was meant to be part 3 and the final part of the Royal Rovers season review Cup Winners' Cup run, but it is still part 3, but I doubt it's going to be the final part. So we shall see how we get on. But yeah, part 3 of 4 now.
You're going to give us a quick 20 minutes on them just cutting up the halftime oranges, aren't you? That's what you're going to do.
Only if your editing skills are up to it.
Okay.
Doesn't get any more appealing than that, does it?
He's back. He's back.
Oh.
This is what we've been missing. And then to finish us off, we have Neil, Bygone, Brinsden, Berrigan. What have you got for us, Neil?
So I've got a story from the it's a Bullet sports special. So it's a short-lived title comic called Bullet in the late 70s, and there's a story from that called The Guts and Glory Man, which is fantastically illustrated by Barry Mitchell. Going to be looking forward to discussing that story with you guys, and also just an introduction to the comic and the special as well.
Brilliant stuff. Yeah, looking forward to that. I didn't myself read Bullet. I mean, I've heard of Bullet. I do have some copies of Bullet, but yeah, really looking forward to that. So thank you very much, Neil. Then what we'll do is we'll do the usual socials where you can get in contact with us, and then do the goodbyes, and and that will be the show. So without further ado, I'm going to move on to the first item in the running order, and that is the social media feedback. Feedback is based on episode 94, which was the one where, well, Paul did some more Melchester stuff, did the birthday book for boys from 1972, and I did a hotshot Hamish story. Now, feedback is from the Melster himself, so let's go for that first. So we have, the headline is Gull has no issues, Tangent Paul goes Motty, Bygone Berrigan goes Brinsden, Mute Button Matt goes ballistic, and Neltic are atrocious.
Good stuff.
Brilliant stuff, Trevor. Yeah, he's obviously using the famous, was it Super Cali? Can't remember.
Yeah.
Didn't the Caledonia Thistle beat Celtic? Do you remember that? That was
Go ballistic.
Go ballistic. Yeah.
Atrocious.
Excellent. Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. Yeah, cheers. So Trevor continues. Yeah, Gull made a welcome return to the side after missing the previous episode for injury. Whilst the team captain had no issues to speak of, he linked up superbly with Dorothy Cotton, who worked tirelessly between the lines to provide a constant supply of tea and biscuits for the front men. Tangent Paul totally dominated the first half proceedings with part 2 of his epic Royal Rovers comic feature, which charts Melchester's 84-85 season and European Cup Winners' Cup campaign. The review was packed with incident and saw the tangential one summon his inner John Watson as the Ramsden Town Crazy Gang beat the Melchester Rovers Culture Club in the 3rd round of the FA Cup. The drama didn't end there, no. Tangent's voice went up several octaves when Rovers fell foul of a blizzard during a match against Liverpool. See picture attached. Yeah, he attached the famous picture of John Watson with the snow going horizontal. Yeah. And when Roy had a number of frosty off-field encounters, Rovers director Ted Garner, together with French national team manager Carlos Villa, both gave Racy the cold shoulder, but surprisingly, so too did the pod's mild-mannered Bygone Berrigan.
There he is.
There's nothing mild about him, trust me.
Yeah.
Bygone has been highly critical of Roy Racy's managerial style in recent weeks, which has led to rumours that Trevor Brinsden is a close confidant of the UK football comic historian. We can just
I'm not
see.
saying
Is
nothing.
that Trevor? Just is he? Can
I can see
he's
him.
in? He's just off camera. The second half saw the introduction of Bygone Berrigan and Mute Button Matt, who both had their shooting boots on. Bygone struck first as he found the back of the net with a cracking Billy's Boot story from the birthday book for boys. And then it was the turn of Mute Button Matt to get in on the act, and he didn't disappoint, unleashing a hot shot Hamish howitzer from the Tiger Annual 1987. Neltic had no chance against Princess Park. You're unplayable, lads. That's brilliant stuff. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Trevor, as ever. Superb. John Evo Evans, he said up to episode 72 and loving it. Few days off work soon, so could be on the to-do list. Brilliant. Great stuff, John. I see John's ploughing through them. Well done.
What we like to see. Committed fans.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Committed
Take
to the
my
word.
hat off.
Yeah.
Yep, committed is definitely the word.
Oh, yeah, I even get Wi-Fi when you're sectioned. Tony Hamilton says, think this was the storyline Roy was forced to bring in veteran keeper Tubby Morton to much criticism from fans and press alike. That's close, Tony. I mean, that's just a couple of seasons before. I mean,
Yeah.
it was quite regular that Rovers keepers would have injuries and someone would have to come in and there'll be a knock-on effect of somebody leaving the club or something or other. But yeah, good shout, Tony. Good to hear from you. On the Champ We Are United Facebook group, we have Adrian Lord, friend of the show.
Yeah. House of Lord.
House of Lord. He said he's 2 podcasts behind at the minute. Sorry, there's been a lot going on. I will catch up on them this week. The House of Lord is still strong.
Hey.
Good to hear it, Adrian. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
Yes, indeed.
And then we have George Prince, our US friend of the show. Hi, George.
Prince of the show.
Prince of the show. Great episode as usual this week. I listened to it at work and it was a blast as usual. However, listening to Paul's energetic rendition of Melchester's 84-85 season, I then took Gull's advice and watched it on YouTube. I then noticed that Gull is never on camera. Is there a reason? I'd love to see his impressions of Doc Cotton and his incomparable singing.
You're not the only one, George. You're not the only one.
First of all, I just want to say, Gull, why did you hack into George Prince's Facebook? That's just not on.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
a cyber
That's
risk
not
there,
fair,
George.
is
You
it?
need to get some sort of VPN security locked in there. But also, Gull does have problems with his Wi-Fi and setup, but he's hoping to get that sorted for next year. So you'll be able to see him in all his glory next year. We're all looking forward to that.
He's a man of mystery.
Yeah, not just a voice of 1,000 voices that are dead.
I've known
Maybe
him for
we'll
10
see the
years and I've
actions.
still not seen his face.
Good stuff. So thank you very much, George. Thanks for your feedback and glad you're still enjoying the show. Ian Golden, another friend of the show.
Yes.
Hi, Ian. And he says, so Roy Jr. pretty much ended Charlie Carter's career. Because you remember Roy Jr., he kicked the ball and Charlie slipped.
Got injured.
He got injured. Streaky Styles comes in. So good point.
Watch this space. Watch
Charlie
this
Carter
space.
he still, he didn't finish his career, but after this, Andy Styles pretty much became number one, I guess, really, most of the time.
Wow.
But we won't.
Part 3's on its way.
Part 3 on its way. Okay.
listeners.
We won't say
Part
anything
3's on
else.
its way, listeners.
Then finally, on YouTube. So you can find us on there. We are United on YouTube. We have Aussie Lee, friend of the show.
Hey,
so another cracking episode, chaps. Great to have Gull back. Not the same without you. There you go, Gull.
Is he hacked into someone else's account?
He's hacked into Lee Coulson's YouTube as well. Yeah. He's not well, but he manages to break the code. Yeah.
Have we ever seen Edward Snowden's face? Do you think it could possibly be the same guy?
Possibly, could be, yeah. Allegedly. Just want to say that allegedly. So Aussie Lee says 84-85 was peak Roy the Rovers. Tangent's breathless recreation of these storylines brings back so many great memories. There you go. Oh, you got another fan as well.
Yes, thank you, Al.
Roy's England comeback reminded me a bit of the Andy Blair books by Michael Hardcastle, if anyone's read those. I must admit, I haven't.
I haven't actually, no.
Lee, but thank you. I mean, maybe listeners might want to check those out.
Yeah.
And very appropriate, there should be a strong Slade storyline this close to Christmas.
Oh,
Very
Yes.
good. Very
Hey,
good.
good. I like that.
Yeah, and finally, appreciation shout out to you for putting yourselves on YouTube with these episodes. I know it's not always easy to see yourself on camera. I'll say, yeah, you're right, Lee, but we do feel for our listeners and viewers much more so because it must be worse for you lot because at least we know what we look like, don't we?
Yeah.
And
I'm on
that's
my
it.
sixth.
Sorry, mate.
I said I'm on my sixth screen.
You're on your
I keep cracking. I keep cracking them.
Brilliant stuff. So that's the social media feedback. Right. So I said I will give some details about what we'd like from listeners for our 100th episode. So as I said, this is 96. We're thinking ahead to our 100th. Hopefully we'll make it. Fingers crossed.
Like a marathon runner that's hit the wall. We hope to get there.
We might just get to 99 and just collapse.
Yeah.
I feels like it sometimes. So previously when we've had anniversaries or we did our 50th, we kind of had a look back ourselves and kind of covered our favorite moments from all the shows. But this time what we wanted to actually do is hear from you, our listeners out there. And when I say here, we'd like to actually have your voices coming through on the show as well. So we have got an email address and we're working on some other ways of doing this in the meantime. And we've got a bit of time to do this. Essentially, what we'd like you to do is to do this between now and say this is Boxing Day to the end of January.
Yeah.
So we have an email address, which is champweareunited, all one word, no gaps, no spaces, no dots, at gmail.com. So that's champweareunited@gmail.com. And what we'd love you to do is just let us know what your favorite moments have been for well, it would be the 99. Clearly you won't know what the 100th is. Hopefully you'll be on the 100th yourself.
Yeah.
But if you can let us know your favorite moments from those 99 shows, what would be your favorite features, interviews, what have you enjoyed? Tell us what you haven't enjoyed as well. I mean, we will edit that, or I'll edit it out if it's anything I've done. But let us know. And if you've got any questions for us as well. And so we'll play you out on the show, and yeah, we say we really want to hear from you. So you've got the email address. We're working on some other ways of doing that. You can also on X, you can send voicemail messages in using X as well to the @champ_r channel as well. But say more on that, and we'll be promoting it over the next few shows. But yeah, we really want to hear from you guys, don't we?
We do indeed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, and looking forward to that 100th episode. Looking forward to it. Right. So, moving down the running order, we have our first section, and he's back. The ghost from a podcast past, voice of reason.
Sorry,
That's really scary.
sorry. I'll turn the camera off.
I wasn't ready for that.
All right.
So I'm gonna share my screen. Simmo, I don't know what you're gonna do, but I mean, you're happy.
I'm not that technically minded, so I'll let you do that.
Okay, so I'm sharing my screen here and if people do want to see it as well and follow it, then they can go onto YouTube. But for your audio pleasure as well, he's back. I'm going to hand over now to Simmo.
Thank you very much, Matt. Right. For those, luckily, with this being quite a small story in comparison to some of the others like the Roy the Rovers, they're not. 1 week is not huge. We're talking 10 pages. So, fortunately, that gives me a little bit of a chance to kind of go off on tangents, as we might say, and do a little bit of in-depth stuff, as well as getting some opinions off you guys, what you feel, what you think as it's going along. For those who are not familiar with the story and who aren't watching it on YouTube and they're just listening audio, I will try and give a little bit of a description of some of the characters so you can get an idea in your head of what they look like. And basically, the seasons we pick it up about 2/3 of the way through the 1983-84 season. But just to give a very brief backstory on the few years before, the late 70s were a very, very good time for United. They'd won 7 trophies in the space of 4 seasons, including 3 back-to-back league titles. Then they lost their manager, Ron Boston, to England in 1980. Now, whether or not this was coincidental or whether this was the start of what was, the downfall of the club, things took a pretty sharp downturn. Within the space of 3 years, they'd gone from being the dominant force in England to actually ended up relegated at the end of the 82-83 season. In a bid to get back into the first division at the first attempt, they brought in a manager, John Bland, who I would probably say, if I was to try and describe his look, he comes across as something of a cross between a 1930s Chicago gangster and a 1970s pimp. And he's got a bit of the his dress and his jewelry, and that he's got a bit of the Malcolm Allison's come Ron Atkinson about him.
Yeah,
that's where I thought you were going to go with the old Malcolm Allison.
Although nowhere near as charming as you will find out.
Yeah.
The club unfortunately has got itself into quite a mess financially as well. They spent a lot of money trying to stave off relegation, and then obviously trying to bounce back at the first attempt. So as we join it in issue 1, they're in quite a state. They're literally the receivers are calling it in. The banks are not willing to prop the club any longer, and it's basically a case of the manager's been told that the big stars have got to go. They've got to save money, and this obviously doesn't please Mr. Bland, who is a bit of a big time Charlie, and he's only interested in the best things in life. So it's like he's had the rug ripped out from under him, and he's not a happy man about it at all. He's been quite clearly told by the board that all this spending's got to stop, and you're going to have to make a lot of changes, a lot of cuts. So he's not happy about it. We get introduced to a few of the first team squad. I'm not going to go in too much in depth in them because a few of them aren't going to be there for very long, so it will be a waste investing too much time in them. Although a couple of them will resurface in flashbacks later in the series, where maybe go into slightly more detail with them then. But at this point, it was just too much of a distraction. We do get to our first look at a couple of reserve team players, Benny Granger and Terry Evans, who already seem to have a bit of a love-hate relationship, which is something that, as we go through the story, will continue. Terry Evans is one of these characters that will rub people up the wrong way quite a bit. He's a Welsh winger, and I think he's probably say he's got a little bit of a look of a young Mark Hughes about him, possibly.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else would see that, or whether somebody else could think of somebody more appropriate. But that's kind of the connection I would make in some small way. Although obviously at this point, Mark Hughes I don't think was on the scene at United, so I don't think he was necessarily an inspiration for the character. We've got Tug Wilson, who is your typical team's tough man, the hard man.
Mm-hmm.
Although not quite in the style of a Ron Harris or a Norman Hunter. He's not one of these that'll cut your leg off and then hand it back to you at the end of the game and act like he's all innocent. He's a hard but fair man. He's a more of a Stuart Pearce type figure.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah. That's good. It's a good comparison.
Yeah, he's hard, but he's not necessarily a thug as such. So we've got the manager, Mr. Bland. He's been kind of given a bit of help by Joe Pearson, the long-serving club captain, as in to try and help sort out the financial situation and work out which players they can afford to keep, which ones are going to be beneficial for the club. So the match coming up is a big game. It's West Town Albion, who actually lead to one of the very few continuity errors in the entire series, but we'll get to that at a later date. It's just one of those interesting little quirks that didn't happen too often in United. I've got to admit they were pretty good with continuity. We also get to meet Fred Rimmy, who is a bit of the team clown. He's he's probably the United version of Mr. Tangent. Mr. Happy-go-lucky. You can't bring the guy down. No matter what the situation, he's always got a glass half full, and he always manages to find something to smile about. So we're coming up towards the getting ready for the game, and Bland's made it quite clear that he thinks that all his eggs are pretty much in one basket. That the German striker Klaus Bygone is the answer to all their problems, and so he's kind of encouraging all the players, get the ball to Klaus, he'll save us, kind of thing. The match gets underway, and we've already got Terry Evans has already he's made his way into the first team. Benny Granger has only made it as far as a substitute, but there's a lot of names in the team that we're not kind of given anything information. We've got about half a team to work with at this point, that we know of. It's keeper Bill Shenton, who is considered one of the best in England.
Yeah.
So it's quite a bit of a coup that he's actually still playing United in the second division. We'll see how long that one lasts. So United kick off, and eager to get a quick goal, and straight away they try and get the ball up to Klaus, but unfortunately the ball going in from Mr. Clive Lyle, who is a bit of a playboy, not exactly the most professional player you've ever come across, not particularly good team man. Seems much more interested in the nightlife and a bit of a drink and that, and
Late Night Lyle, eh?
Late Night Lyle, that's it. That's the nickname. That's the one. Late Night Lyle. Kind of harks back to the days of a Rodney Marsh, George Best, George kind of a character, and probably preceding the likes of a Charlie Nicholas, perhaps. That's kind of same sort of attitude, sort of like persona kind of thing. And so they've made this start where they're really quite determined that they're going to make this happen, and Joe's trying to inspire the team, and they seem to be playing pretty well. And actually, they've made a good start. They put a few moves together. Klaus gets a good opportunity, but unfortunately, he's pretty much convinced he scored. He's hit it perfectly, but somehow the keepers have managed to keep it out. And we've got to half time, and unfortunately, there's no goals. But at this point, it's looking fairly promising. So there are signs that maybe United have finally kind of get something going, get together. But not long into the second half, and Late Night Lyle goes down, looking like he's been shot. To be fair, it's almost like a premonition. We're seeing things in this from 40 years ago, which wouldn't necessarily be out of place now.
Yeah,
because it wasn't an era where you saw this kind of thing happen, where you'd see players like feigning injury and going down for the slightest little thing. But I think it's kind of foreshadowing what's to come, as he's quite clearly not as badly injured as what he's making out. He just doesn't want to be there. He wants to get out. So Benny Granger finally gets his chance to come on. Straight away, he's making a bit of an impression, winning a few balls. But West Ham Albion were starting to get back into the game quite a bit, and they've needed Joe to save them. The Bland's starting to get a bit panicky now. The nerves are setting in, and he's calling his team a bunch of misfits, which I'm sure isn't helping them in any way. But Benny's still doing his best. He's made quite a good impression, and he's set Terry Evans away on a good opportunity. But the combination of Terry's own selfishness and John Bland encouraging him, we see Terry running himself into trouble and losing the ball. We get a little bit later into the game, and United are under pressure, and Joe's got himself boxed in a little bit, and he's looking for a way out. And fortunately, Benny is showing straight away what an intelligent little player he is. He's given him an option, but and so he's got kind of Joe out of a bit of a pickle there. But unfortunately, Terry Evans, who was daydreaming, hasn't seen the opportunity, hasn't picked up on Benny trying to play the ball into him, and he's just like given up on it. He's not even really made much of an effort. The ball's gone past him, but he's kind of given up on it way too easily, and he's easily beaten to the ball, knocked to the floor, and as a result of that, Albion have gone straight down the other end and scored with literally the last kick of the game. So after all that good early work, United have been sucker punched and they've lost the game. So the recriminations have already started. Terry turns on Benny. Manager John Bland's having a pop at Joe, thinking that he's responsible for not stopping the header that won the winning goal. But I think the crowd are seeing through it. They're quite it's quite clear to them that Bland is really just looking to apportion blame to other people, which is definitely the case. I mean, he's just he's a vile human being, to be honest. He's got one of them faces you'd want to punch.
It looks a bit like in that picture in the middle. I'm not talking about the face you'd like to punch, but it looks like Alan Carr. In that round circle.
Oh,
that is like,
right. Yes. Either one.
It looks a bit like Alan Carr. I'm not saying I'd like to punch Alan Carr at all. Maybe it's the teeth.
No, yeah, you'd probably want to stop him talking, though, wouldn't you? Yeah, he's just got that. There's everything about him is just.
It's a well drawn.
It is,
isn't it? Brilliant portrayal.
It's really brilliantly drawn. As soon as you look at him, you just know he's bad news.
Yeah.
It's a bit like the old classic, Hatchet Man that you see in the other comics, where as soon as you look at him, you just know, well, this guy's trouble. Well, this Bland, I mean, it's been drawn so well, you can just see that he's so far up himself. He doesn't know where he starts and everything else, finishes.
He's a great artist, though.
It is the artwork is superb. I mean, we're still obviously there's still a lot of the characters that we've not come across yet. Even the few that we have, you've only got to have seen them in a couple of frames, and if you're reading on, you can instantly tell who they are. There's not.
I've got an interesting thing to say about that when you get near to the end of this on that, Simmo.
Right. Okay. I mean, you can jump in now if you want to, mate. Talk about
because it will kill kind of the next bit that you're going to do. Okay. So if you carry on, and then I'll jump in then.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So they're back in the changing rooms. They're all looking a bit down, but Bland is all he's done. He's gone into the boardroom and he's basically blaming the players for everything. He's not taking any sense of responsibility for it. So he goes into the dressing room with a list of the players that have been deemed surplus to the requirements. Obviously, Klaus Bygone, he was an expensive signing. He's the first out the door. They can't afford to keep him. Late night Lyle's going. I think enough people at the club have probably seen that he's not the kind of man that they need that's going to get him out of trouble. So he's on his way. There's Kevin Kline, who will probably go on to be an actor. I would imagine he'll probably team up with Will Smith at some point. He's gone, and there's another load of players who've gone who literally this is the only time we even get to hear their names, but there's no faces to them at all. We hear about someone called Sam. There's no last name. We also hear about Reeves, Connolly, Smith, Hall, none of whom, they're all faceless characters who we'll never see or hear from again. And the last name on the list is Joe himself, which obviously comes as a crushing blow to Joe, as he's a very loyal club man, and United is very dear to his heart, and he's probably more devastated than anybody. So we start to see the players break up and go their separate ways. Late Night Lyle has apparently had an offer from Dalebury Rangers.
Yeah.
Not Darbury Rangers.
No, exactly. It's an
So,
interesting one. Yeah.
so this was a club that, as far as I'm aware, unless they appeared in the Picture Story monthlies, were never mentioned again.
No.
Klaus Bergen supposes that he'll go back to Germany, go back to the Bundesliga. While Joe's left, really at being 33, and he's probably thinking he's washed up and that his football career's over. Although he does have a little sports shop as a side business, but it's not going too well. So he's worrying a little bit about whether or not he can make that work. So after they've gone, Bland's gone back into the boardroom, and so again he's still removed himself from any responsibility, blaming the players. He's happy they've gone, cut them loose. Can't, it's all their fault. But he gets a bit of a shock to the system when the boardroom decide that they can no longer afford him either with his expensive tastes. And so they're probably the best decision ever. They've got rid of him, which was definitely a good move. Just as we're seeing Joe leave the club, he's packing up, getting ready to go as Bland's gone storming past him. And as Joe's he's going down the steps about to leave, he gets called back in. He thinks it's just going to be a bit of a polite send off, thanks for the service and so on. But they actually want him to take over as manager or player manager, which obviously comes as a huge shock to Joe. He didn't see that one coming at all. It's very, very left field as far as he was concerned. But he's been warned that obviously there's going to be no cash for players. That they're still going to have to make further cuts eventually down the line, and that he's not going to get much of a wage. But for Joe, he doesn't care about any of that. This is his lifelong dream, and he jumps at the chance. He wants the job, telling everybody that he's going to take the job, and he's going to try and put this club back where it belongs. And that's a bit of wouldn't exactly call it a cliffhanger.
No,
that's the setup.
The dramatic finish.
Yeah.
Shall I do
dramatic.
it?
Go on.
And next week, the rebuilding begins.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. So that's where we leave it at the end of the first episode.
Yeah, fantastic.
Hotly anticipating week 2.
Yeah, just as you said there, and that's why I didn't want to interrupt you, but I read an interview, and it's really bad of me. Hope maybe one of you can remember, but the artist that drew this first episode in Champ, he actually confessed that he hadn't obviously seen the full script, and he'd done a lot of work on the characters, Simmo. So your late Lyle and Klaus Bergen and Kevin Kane and these characters, he'd actually put a lot of work in forming these characters. He said, and then when he worked through the script, he then found out that they were gone. And he said after that, he never really put in so much work on a new strip again. So it's really interesting to read that. So it's kind of like you said, but in a weird way, I think that worked really well because, like you, when I first read it, and we've mentioned in, I think Ridders has mentioned, is it the Blues, and you've Neil actually, Bygone, in the FPSM Football Picture Story monthly specials, it feels like a story that's already halfway there, that the characters are already built. And I think that was the beauty there. Your Klaus Bergens, your Late Night Lyles and your Kevin Kanes in that United team, they're actually cut in episode 1, but they felt like characters. But I think that came about, as I say, a little bit by luck rather than judgment, because the artist himself didn't know that they were going to be cut at the end of that.
Yeah,
so really interesting. I thought that
they are definitely, well, especially in the case of Late Night Lyle and Kevin Kane, they are. I mean, Klaus Bergen, I suppose, is slightly more generic in his appearance, but the other two, you can see there's definitely been an attempt to build some kind of character behind them.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
It's got nowhere to go. They've just been tossed aside.
Yeah, they're off. They're gone. Yeah, that's it.
I mean, in the case of Klaus,
football comics as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to say, for somebody that hasn't seen this, what would you imagine Klaus Bergen looks like? You would probably not be you'd not be a million
No.
miles away
Yeah.
with what you would imagine in your head.
Mm.
But the other two, they're very distinctive, and it's the same with the other players. Even as we go through the weeks, there are only one or two players that, from a distance, you would think, oh, was it him or was it him?
Yeah.
But most of them,
Yeah.
they are very, very
It's a very
easy to
well written
spot.
story, though, isn't it? I mean,
Mm.
within the first week's episode, you're already rooting for United and Joe Pearson.
It's
You
a
know,
it's a great storyline. Is it already? You're kind of thinking it's a great setup, isn't it? It's perfect.
It,
And
it's like it's like you've jumped into something in the middle of it.
mm,
I
But-
think
but-
again, Simo, sorry, apologies to interrupt you there,
It's no
but
problem.
like you said, the one thing that I remember from when I first got that, and you kind of glossed over it, but I understand because of the story, but I'd never seen the like of it before, where it actually had the history of United, and like you said, that's where you got the Ron Boston information. It actually also had the last 10 seasons, didn't it? It had the
Yeah,
season heading
yeah.
and then just a few line of
That's it.
text.
Yeah,
So kind of me being the kind of, as a youngster, I think we all sort of at that time like pored over these stats and things,
Oh,
reading that, and suddenly I've got this new story, but I've got this rich history of a club, and you just, as you said, you get that feeling that, as you mentioned, was it 7 trophies in 4 seasons, this massive successful club, but all of a sudden they've fallen on these hard times, and you just feel you're immersed immediately, and
yeah,
that
absolutely.
was something that I've never really got in the Royal Rovers. But again, not, as for me, we've kind of said it's not about what's better or anything, they're different. One of the things
Yeah.
that Champ, they had 8 pages, whereas as we know, like in Royal Rovers, often it's just 2 pages a week. So, but that's what allowed United to give that extra depth.
That's it. Plus, I mean, obviously I cut short a lot of the the 10-year history because I didn't want to get bogged down in that.
Yeah.
Because I could have spent 10 minutes just going over that.
Yeah, easily.
But yeah,
easily.
when I saw that, it was like I soaked that up like a sponge because that was like that's giving you're already, unlike some stories where you've got to kind of build your way into it, you've already got something there on the first page. You've already got some information, more than you would get with a lot of stories.
Yeah.
So you've already got a feel for where they're coming from and what's been going on. It does help. It does make
completely.
you feel. It does help you getting a little bit more invested in what's happening.
But I think I think just to kind of move us along, I think what you've done there is you kind of set the scene well anyway. So we're gonna follow this week on week. But it's a brilliant first.
Yeah, I think that's really all the first episode is doing.
Yeah,
it?
Exactly. It's just set up. It's set up.
It's like this is what's happened. Now at the end of the first episode, we're wiping the slate clean, and now the new story is going to start.
Yeah.
It's almost like even what you're seeing, kind of in real time in episode 1, is like the conclusion of one part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, just sorry, quick. As you said, Matt, I know we've got to move on. But again, there, as Simmo, you got John Bland as the manager, it's quite clearly the villain. You've got Joe Pearson, quite clearly the club man. And it ends, we've got rid of the villain. And although the club's on its knees, the club man's going to take it on, And as I say, tune in next week for Joe Pearson and the rebuilding. And you're on side because they've drawn you into supporting Joe Pearson. So yeah, brilliant.
But what you will find, I mean, for people that have actually got, that have followed this story and big fans of this and aware of what goes on past this point, they will know that even though you've got your traditional villains and good guys, the thing about We Are United is you've got an awful lot of grey areas in the middle. It's not simply your good guy, bad guy story. And that's, I think, is one of the things that really appealed to me, because even the so-called good characters have their bad days, and even the bad guys redeem themselves sometimes, and it just keeps it grounded. It's not like your typical, like Star Wars, Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader. You've got everything in between as well, and that's what just drew it to me, and always has done. It's just because everybody's different shades of grey.
Good. Excellent stuff. That was fantastic. Thank you very much, Simmo. It's great to have the voice of reason back.
Yeah, brilliant.
Can I just
So,
ask one question? Who is
yeah,
the
Yeah, of
artist?
course.
What was the name of the artist?
I
Do we
can't
know?
I really
it's
can't
Pete
remember.
Foster, wasn't it?
Was
It was
it?
Pete
Was it?
Foster and
Right,
Neville Wilson, and I think that was Pete Foster. I think the first week.
right.
I think, but I stand to
Try
be
Say,
corrected by any of the listeners out there.
I'm
I'll
sure
try and
somebody
find
out
that
there
article again.
will
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Brilliant stuff. Looking forward to the next instalment already. Thank you very much, Simmo. Now we over to the tangential one. I know. I said it wasn't going to stick, but I'm kind of just going with it, really. Just
you
more in an
noticed though, I'm
ironic,
just
just more in
enjoying
an
it. So
ironic sense,
I
really.
didn't want to
Nobody really
pick up
believes
on it.
it.
I'm just smiling. I'm smiling and enjoying it.
Right. So it's over to you, Mr. Tangent. I'll
Thank you,
try and
Matt.
share the screen.
Right. So we're on to part 3. And if you remember, we left you in part 2 with Roy having been stretchered off after scoring on his comeback in an England shirt, finding out that he had ligament damage and he would miss the Melchester Rovers' vital third round Cup Winners' Cup tie. And of course, we know that there'd been caused some arguments in the boardroom as well. So we'll pick it up, and the cover of Roy of the Rovers on the 9th of March 1985, with the headline on that cover, Rovers Big Cup Game Without Roy Race. We see a smiling Blackie Gray leading the Rovers out, followed by Andy Styles, Vic Guthrie and Duncan Mackay. And watching on is Roy dressed casually with his hand on a walking stick. Inside,
sorry,
though,
I know,
yep.
sorry to interrupt already.
That's
No, I don't want to interrupt because I know you're in full flow. But he's got some sort of like Michael Jackson jacket on. I've just spotted Roy.
Yeah, do you know what? I
Out
didn't.
the Thriller video, but just not.
In all fairness, they're definitely.
Black.
It's not the black and red thing. It's just blue, but it's got the shoulder pads.
It's got the shoulder pads, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah,
You're
I've
right.
just
It is the
spotted
Thriller
that before.
jacket. Yeah, I didn't want to. I mean, we get very bogged down in the since Pep and the styles of the manager on the touchlines, but I didn't want to get bogged down in that. But yeah, good
Sorry.
spot. It's definitely the Thriller jacket.
Carry on.
As we
Shemo.
move inside the cover, though, we actually see Roy return to the Rovers, and he's getting out of car with a walking stick, and board members waiting for him. We're informed that Roy has already missed a league match, and if you remember, board member Ted Garner, of course, is at the front of the criticism of Roy. You just wouldn't listen. Now your injury has ruined our chance of winning a trophy this season. Roy maintains, though, that he was fully fit for the England game, and that last tackle from Jean Gramond would have flattened an elephant. Garner moved to the training pitch where Jeff Boycott is. Garner exclaiming, "How can you be so calm?" He demands a full board meeting. But there's a brilliant response from Jeff Boycott. "Hey up, lad. The way you're talking, you'd think we were out of the cup already." Sorry, I think I'll go back to my normal voice. Not a great Jeff Boycott impression.
Look at it. Simmo could probably do it better than you.
Yeah.
You've got more of a Yorkshire accent.
Unfortunately, not. No.
Okay.
And Jeff says to
I've got the grouchy personality, but not the accent.
Oh, okay, of course.
Jeff says to Ted Garner, "Try telling that to those lads out there, rated the strongest club side in Europe. I reckon they fancy their chances, with or without Roy. Are you suggesting that Melchester Rovers are a one-man team?" Garner backtracking, of course. Of course not. I've got to say, this is fantastic artwork again by Mr. Skew, because we see in the background there, and there's just a Roy who's obviously overheard this conversation, and he's grinning to himself.
Oh yeah,
and you can just tell that he's sort of like, good, look, good on you, Jeff, you tell him, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But Ted Garner still has words to say, leaving Boycott telling you'd better prove him, Jeff sort of saying to Roy that you'd better prove him wrong or there'll be no stopping old Ted. Roy is now on the sidelines with Taffy Morgan, but the good news is he's informed, if you remember, there'd been a flu epidemic and we've got a big injury list, but all the injured players are now fit and Roy's got new problems now of who to leave out. Taffy saying that any manager would be happy to have 3 fit keepers like this, although should I say 2, because I doubt you would consider Styles. But we've got a team line up again, and Roy has gone for Styles. Number 1, Andy Styles. 2, Noel Baxter. 3, Duncan Mackay. 4, Jimmy Slade. Mackay. UK Mackay, and I say Mackay. 5, Vic Guthrie. 6, Mark Butler. 7, Rob Richards. 8, Blackie Gray. 9, Kenny Logan. 10, Carl Hunt. 11, Neville Jones. And on the bench, Mervyn Wallace, Charlie Carter, remember the goalkeeper that came down with the flu that Styles has replaced, Steve Naylor, Glenn Ritchie and Trevor Cassidy. And so we're back to the front cover actually. The artwork is repeated in, as we now see again, as we said, Blackie leading out the Rovers. In the caption above the panel, we informed that by the fans that as well as the players, they have mixed feelings about Styles' selection. The fan commentary, that injury must have gone to Roy's head. I could hardly watch some of the things Styles was doing. He's unorthodox, to say the least, but the kid also made some of the best saves I've ever seen. As Rovers' opponents, Belgian signed Boca and line up for kickoff, the crowd once more give us vital information. They are useful. They have already knocked out the Italian Cup holders. Their danger men are Graf and Novak, a couple of fast wingers. Taffy on the bench says to Roy, Boca won't want to concede, so he thinks that Graf and Novak will play deep. Roy responds, possibly, but you can never tell. To the action, and it looks like Roy is right as Bochum make it a quick break. Novak is clear straight away. Noel Baxter's coming into cover. It's a great tackle from Baxter in the area. Hold on a minute, we've got another one of those comic book moments. I tell you, I think Baxter's got the ball there, but the referee's blown up for the whistle. This Hungarian has decided to give a penalty at the start of the match. I can't believe this.
Oh my God.
This is an unbelievable start to this game here. Vital cup tie for Rovers. And we move on to the next edition. And I tell you what, we're very lucky here, people, because we've got a Roy of the Rovers. We're treated to an exclusive Roy of the Rovers film sequence, which is going to show all the drama of this penalty kick. I've got to admit, I didn't realise that this technology existed back then. If you can, I don't know if you're tennis fans, but you know that ultra slow motion camera where you can really see the ball bouncing on the ground that you wouldn't see. Basically, that's what we've got. And straight away, if I break it down for you, so we see the Boca and number 11. He starts his run to the ball. He plants his standing foot perfectly. We see him connect with the ball. Perfect balance and poise. Head over the ball. Clearly going for the keeper's top right corner of the goal. In the background, though, as the ball leaves the number 11's boots, Styles is yet to move. Now the ball mid-air, heading to that top corner. We can see Styles is shifting his weight. The ball moving closer to the top corner. Now Styles is looking to push off. He's diving, but surely this penalty is perfectly placed. Styles, a flash of green across the goal. He's got his hand to the ball. The Boca and 11 can't believe it. He raises his hand to his head. Styles has managed to push it round the post for a corner. The Boca and 11 can't believe it. What a save. Fantastic action. I tell you what, you wouldn't be able to get this. So pleased that Roy of the Rovers have got this amazing film sequence that I can describe for you. So the corner swings in and Styles is there straight up. He's punched the ball clear. And Carl Hunt has got the ball and he's knocked it straight to Jimmy Slade, who hits a fantastic crossfield ball. Rob Richards is in the area. Surely he can't miss. Oh, Richards, no. It's straight at the Boca and keeper.
Typical Richards.
I really thought, what an action-packed start we've got to this match. As the game moves on, though, Rovers, I tell you what, they're back to their style of play this season. They've had a strong start when the off-field things aren't affecting them. And moments later, as Richards, he's got another great chance, but this time he's fired over the bar. Well, that fantastic save from Andy Styles keeping it down, but Richards really could have put Rovers 2-0 up here. At half-time, Rob is apologising to Roy, but Roy says he's been thinking and he wants to switch Richards to centre forward. The Boca and central defenders are on the small side and you'll pulverise them with your height. Rob says he will try, whilst his thought bubble tells us that he really thought he was going to be substituted. To the second half, Boca and kick off, but we cut to Ted Garner in the stands, and the director once more complaining about Roy's injury. His thought bubble: if we lose this game because you are on the bench, I won't let you get away with it. I simply can't. But on the pitch, Rovers are on the attack. We've got Neville Jones going down the wing and he crosses high. Richards, though, he's drawn two defenders, but he can't get to the ball. But there's Noel Baxter charging in at the far post like an express train. Oh, what a header. Nowhere. What a finish that is. And Rovers are 1-0 up. Taffy's congratulating Roy on the bench. His tactics of putting Rob Richards in the centre, helping to create that goal. And he's laughing with Roy, saying that Rob doesn't even realise the effect that he's had. And Roy simply smiles back to Taffy, saying, saying to him, you know, sometimes you can know too much. But now Roy's thought bubble saying he thinks that they need 2 more goals to get Garner off his back. It's all Rovers. Neville Jones goes close. Rob Richards running off the ball is causing havoc, forcing the defenders to cover him. At that moment, Carl Hunt uses the space to unleash from distance. Oh, what a thunderous shot from the Hunter. It's 2-0 Rovers.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a great start to the second half. Bockeran are now forced to push players forward. They've left gaps for a great Melchester move. Styles throws out to Logan. Inside to Slade, who finds Butler. Unmarked as Richards has once more drawn the 3-0. Butler slots it home. Fantastic 3-0. Late on in the match, Kenny Logan adds a 4th goal, a massive lead for the second leg for Rovers. Surely they're on their way to the semi-finals. Richards at the end of the match says to Duncan Mackay, 4-0 with no help. I can't do this the whole feature. You say Mackay, I say Mackay.
Keep going.
Duncan then says you tried as hard as anyone. You're switched to the middle. You were so anxious to score. You hustled the Belgian defence into a right old state. Vic Guthrie chirping in. You helped to make openings for the rest of us. After the match, Roy sees Ted Garner just outside the dressing room, and he says to Ted, I just played a few hunches and they came off here, Ted. Garner, though, still not amused, saying the players supported him magnificently, and let's hope your luck doesn't run out in the second leg. The second leg 2 weeks later saw Roy return to the team and score the only goal of the match to secure Rovers' passage into the semi-finals. Fantastic result for Rovers. In the stands, though, watching is Carlos Villa, remember, the manager of the French team, is also the manager of Real Santana, which I'm going to come on to in a second. Santana had beaten Dynamo 7-2 in the first leg, so Villa taking this chance to look at the Rovers game and to see if they might face Melchester in the semi-final. And I'm just going to break off for one of my tangents, and unfortunately, Gull's not here for a continuity klaxon. If you remember in part 2, it was because I kept on saying Santander and Gull thankfully did correct me. It was Santander. So that's Santanda. Yeah. But from this moment onwards, the D is dropped and it's Santana, which is very, very interesting. I
must admit, I forgot it was Santander. I can remember it being Santana. I suppose because it's much more in the story as Santana. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. That's right.
Interesting.
And again, we move on, and Roy now, the Rovers are back into league action, and Roy's shown that he's fully recovered unfortunately for their Rovers opponents, Oldfield. Racy bags a hat-trick and sets up Rob Richards to help Rovers gain a 4-0 victory. I keep saying this, if it wasn't for these off-field things and the injuries, I really think Rovers, well, they should have been in the race for the title, but as we know, they've fallen adrift because of the injury crisis. We also see Andy Styles pull off a great save to keep a clean sheet. During the game, we got a flashback to the Villa incident all those years ago, and of course the recent England game. And the fans are speculating about the draw and saying that it must be on Roy's mind. You know, he could once again be facing Carlos Villa. I think we mentioned this when we did the Danefield United run to the European Cup final. At the end of the game, Roy comes off and he sees General Manager Ben Galloway, and he says to Ben, "Did you make the call?" And I find this amazing. So the clubs back in those days used to phone UEFA for the draw. So there was none of this, hot balls, cold balls and television and all the football stars drawing it. The managers would phone up UEFA and be told. And Ben Galloway's there, and we've been paired with Stauberg, the West German Cup winners, first leg on their ground, 10th of April. So that semi-final draw is Stauberg of Germany against Melchester Rovers, and we're informed the other match is Scotland's Glenmore Rangers against the Spanish team Real Santana, obviously Carlos Villa's team. We find out, and we've got another continuity klaxon coming up, in the dressing room when Roy tells everybody that Duncan Mackay's cousin Rob plays for Glenmore, with Duncan exclaiming "Ay," because Noel Baxter mentions it to him. He says, "Ay, he does, laddie, and if Villa tries any strong arm stuff on our Robert, he wish he'd stayed in sunny Spain, do you ken?" All the Melchester Rovers obviously laughing in the dressing room of what Carlos Villa's going to have to face. as we say, tangents and background stories, or is it just the fact that we're never too far away from a crisis? After that Oldfield match, we see Andy Styles. He's in the team bath, and he's informed that there are loads of kids waiting for him outside the ground. He's almost got a new fan club. Suddenly, it's all too much for the 18-year-old, and we see him signing, but not looking too happy as the youngsters are showing him the adulation. And when he gets home, he exclaims to his parents, "I don't want to play for Melchester anymore." Then we see Andy on his motorbike arriving at the training ground. But again, these youngsters are all standing outside the training ground, and Andy just spins his bike round. He just turns around and he just rides away, not turning up for training. Roy wondering what's going on, and he hears from the young fans that Styles had run, and he seemed frightened. So Roy decides that he's going to go and pay the Andy Styles family a visit. Roy meets Andy's mum, who informs him that Andy was only going to the club to inform Roy that he didn't want to play for the first team anymore. But obviously he couldn't even find the courage to get that far. It's all the hero worship. He just can't cope with it. He's frightened of letting you down. Roy decides that he could leave Styles to work it out for himself, but he thinks that Styles needs a shock treatment. Well, later on that day, Roy is confronted by the press, suggesting they now know of a problem with Styles, and they're asking about the Cup Winners' Cup. Roy is adamant that Rovers take one game at a time, and he shows the press his team sheet for the upcoming league match against Portdean, and Styles is in goal. That Friday, though, as the coach leaves Mel Park for Portdean, Styles is not on it. But as the coach pulls into the Portdean ground, the players spot Styles' motorbike in the car park. And yes, Andy's waiting for them in the dressing room. Roy, happy to see Styles, says, "Andy, well, what are you waiting for? You'd better get changed." Roy getting dressed. He's looking quite smug with himself, believing that his gamble's paid off in his thought bubble, and that Styles' appearance means that the young goalkeeper has conquered his nerves and everything will be fine now. Well, we shall see. I think we know that it's never as simple as that, is it, in comic book football? But however, soon in the match, Portdean put in a dangerous cross, but it should be an easy claim for Styles. But he fumbles it, and the ball ricochets off his body, and a Portdean forward pounces straight on it. 1-0 to Portdean. Not a great start, and straight away we can see Roy now. His thought bubble is, Andy's so nervous. His hands are like jelly, and it's all my fault. I shouldn't have pressured him into playing. Shortly on, as the match moves on, we see Mark Butler in the centre of defence. He's under a lot of pressure, and he just plays the ball back to Styles. A very simple back pass, but Styles just doesn't move. And this time it's the Portdean 11 taking advantage. He nips in, bang, it's 2-0. Rovers are 2-0 down. I can't believe it. Like, from 5-0 victories to these amazing goals conceded.
I think the Andy Styles fan club's just been disbanded.
Well, yes, it does make you wonder. He's certainly not worthy of it at the moment. Vic Guthrie's ready to give Styles a piece of his mind, but Roy steps in straight away, telling Vic that to blame him, it's all his fault. It's really, he's made a mistake picking Styles here. Now it's all Portdean. We see Guthrie clearing off the line. We get to the second half. We see Rovers get a goal back. Roy heads down for Carl Hunt to fire home. But there was to be another goal, and it's Portdean to secure a 3-1 defeat. And that third goal, it goes under Styles' body. I've got to say, looks like an easy save for a goalkeeper of his.
We're disappointed with that.
Really, he's got to be disappointed with that, exactly. On the final whistle, though, Roy apologised, saying it was his fault to Styles, and the keeper has to feel his way back. So he will be in the Cup Winners' squad, but not in the team. So we had mention in our feedback of Charlie Carter. We then see the plane leave for Germany, and in the caption we're informed that Charlie Carter had been in talks with Roy about his future. However, on the plane it's mentioned that Carter has taken returning to the team without any resentment. Carter responding, "That's what I'm paid for." We see a training session on the Stylebelt pitch. Styles is performing well, but of course it's going to be Carter that's starting in goal. But at the end of the session, Carter looks unwell, saying he feels terrible, sick and really dizzy. When the the players get back to the hotel, the club doctor is summoned, and he breaks the news that Carter has food poisoning. And I love this bit. Apparently, Charlie Carter has had prawns at the local market. Apparently, he's crackers for prawns. Ben Galloway says to Roy that he will have to get special permission to fly Walter Williams out at that point. Thankfully, none of the other Rovers players are crackers for prawns, and it's only Charlie that's eaten them. But just as Ben and Roy are talking, the door opens and it's Andy Styles, and he's interrupting, and he's saying that he's heard about Charlie and he has a much better idea. And so it's Wednesday night, and we see Rovers run out for the first leg of this vital semi-final Cup Winners' Cup match. And some of the fans just can't believe it, because there's Andy Styles. It is confirmed he's in the starting lineup. And the fans just really can't believe it, especially after that Portdean shambles. And we even get a close-up of two of the Stolberg players. They're smiling. If what they say about that Styles fellow is true, I would try to persuade him not to play. His teammate laughing, "We will take a big lead to Melchester, yeah?" That's my finest German for you.
That's a great German accent, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Seemingly buoyed by the Melchester keeper's selection, Stolberg start the game confidently, and they're on the attack. And they swing the ball into the Rovers' box, but Styles, rooted to his spots, then suddenly a shout of goalies, and he shoves Vic Guthrie out of the way, leaps forward, and he plucks the ball off the top of a Stolberg forward's head.
Brilliant.
And you know what? As he lands in one motion, he immediately throws the ball out to Roy. Roy, with what a great pass, sends Neville Jones down the wing. The England winger runs with the ball, cuts inside. And I tell you what, again, if you get the chance to see the highlight reel, he curls one into the top corner. I tell you something, Neville Jones isn't getting the headlines, but I can see why Bobby Robson included him in that England team. What a finish. A fantastic goal from Rovers, 1-0. Stolberg, though, they're determined to test Styles, and we see them moving forward, and we see Styles make two great saves, a really brave one diving at a forward's feet. And then Roy, though, the match moves on. Roy manages to set up Carl Hunt, and it's 2-0 to Rovers before half-time. Fantastic scoreline. And of course, the Rovers players are wondering what's caused this sudden transformation in the Rovers keeper. There's no doubt about it. The Styles' performance has transferred into the players and given them confidence. Roy reveals at half time to the Rovers players, and I like this. Last night, when Styles returned from the local disco, which I'm surprised that Roy seemed to be all right with that, but then we don't really delve into that much. As he tried to get back into the hotel, he was challenged by two security guards who didn't recognise him as a Melchester player. And of course, it made Andy relax and just be himself, because he realised nobody really knew who he was in Germany. So the pressure of the expectation dropped for him. And as we see, then we move into the second half, and Rovers are in complete control of this game. Rob Richards sets up Roy for a third goal, then a great solo goal from Roy to round things to make it 4-0, and then to round things off, it's another hammer from midfield dynamo Carl Hunt, 5-0. I can't believe how many times Rovers have bagged 3, 4 and 5 this season. It's the most pleasing thing for Roy, though, is at the end of the match, he sees Andy Styles in front of the Melchester Rovers the travelling fans, and they're singing his name, and he's taking the adulation. And even then, after that, he's signing autographs from young fans. In the dressing room, Styles tells all the players, though, that he's off to see how Charlie Carter is. And again, Roy's very happy to see that the youngster very grounded and concerned about his fellow.
He's a nice guy. Yeah.
He is a nice guy. We're informed that the other semi-final was finished Real Santana 1 and Glenmore Rangers 1. On the team's return, Roy is asked about another. The press obviously are really trying to stir up the chance of a match against Carlos Villa once more. Roy responds, Glenmore, though, will be favourites to go through. And of course, Stolberg could always beat Rovers 6-0 in the return leg, in which case Carlos Villa will not be a problem.
Of course, that's likely to happen.
Yes, of course. Well, guess what? We move on a week later, and we just get the second leg of this vital semi-final. It's covered in 2 panels, and we see a great header from Rob Richards and Jimmy Slade. Remember, we all thought he was going to be the star of the season on that opening day performance, but Jimmy Slade in on the scoring act, a 2-0 victory on the night, securing a 7-0 aggregate score to put Rovers in the final. But who will they face? As Roy gets down to the tunnel after the match, he's greeted by General Manager Ben Galloway. So is it Glenmore in the final? Ben, looking stern-faced and concerned, responds, Real, Roy. The Spaniards scored twice in the second half. A half that they'll never forget up there. It was sheer murder, apparently. The Spaniards abandoned any attempt at football and became a team of hitmen. 5 of the Scottish players were injured. Galloway's interrupted by Duncan Mackay. What about my brother? Well, I'm just going to take a pause there. Continuity,
brother.
Claxon. If you remember, Noel Baxter mentioned his cousin, Robert. But now Duncan's asking about his brother.
They're a close family. Very close family.
Close family, yeah. Galloway continued, I'm afraid your brother is in hospital, Duncan. His right leg is broken in 2 places. They'll say he'd be lucky if he ever kicks a football again. Devastating news, and you can see Duncan's not happy. And we see now the players are getting in a TV report, and they'll go with the TV commentary. I don't know if you... Simmo, you might be able to help me out. There's a famous David Coleman commentary in an Argentina-Spain game or something. It's a disgrace of Seville or something. But anyway, the Rovers watched this TV report, and we're told that there's ugly scenes dominated the second half of the game, and Santana must shoulder most of the blame. It looked like Glenmore had booked a place in the final when Hughes gave them a 2-1 lead just before half-time. But their dream turned into a nightmare. Here we see Carlos Villa shouting last-minute instructions as they came out for the second half. Within minutes, Kenny McGregor became the first of 5 Scottish players to be hacked down by the Santana hatchet men. McGregor was taken off before the substitute could settle. Perez put the tie all square with a controversial game. The watching Duncan Mackay shouting at the screen, foul on the keeper. And but obviously not given. Back to the TV commentary. Then just before another goal, put Rover into the just before, and then another goal in the final, the tackle on Bob Mackay, which almost caused a riot because Santana have taken the lead, but before the end, there's just an absolutely horrendous tackle. I mean, it's nowhere near the ball. It studs right below the knee, and as Mackay is stretchered off, angry Glenmore fans are demonstrating against Carlos Villa. But Villa on the touchline seemed grimly satisfied by the tactics of his team, and the commentator saying, "A sad night for Glenmore and a tragic one for the game of football." In the dressing room, Duncan Mackay is incensed, as you can imagine. He's shouting at the TV. Roy's trying to calm him down, saying retaliation is not the way. But Mackay is querying, how would you feel if it was your brother cut down like that? Duncan,
or cousin.
Or cousin, yeah. Duncan storms out, saying he's off to see his brother and he will be in touch with Roy as soon as he can. We then cut and we can see Jimmy Slade's giving an interview to the press, and it seems that he's being quoted because he's heard to say, well, what would you do if it was your brother? Roy stopping the interview immediately and trying to contain it. But the papers are fueled with the stories. Rovers fury and declaring war on the Spanish thugs. You can imagine the headlines have all just covered now by this, but it's not gone down well in the boardroom. And we see Jeff Boycott in the boardroom announcing that the Football Association have been in touch. They're critical of the club's alleged statements to the press. Roy saying they were sheer fantasy, which Jeff agrees, but the FA want the club to deny they were responsible for the headlines publicly. Roy tells the board it is up to them, but he has told certain reporters what he thinks of them, and that the board will have to accept his assurances that none of my players will say or do anything which suggests we'll be headhunting in the final. In the build-up to the final, the press are having a field day, stirring it up, saying that the final will be the most unpredictable final in the competition's history. In a final training session, we see Roy loses his temper, firing a football at cameramen, shouting, "No more interviews, get those cameras out of here." Ben Galloway quickly rushing over, telling Roy to calm down and that the cameramen had permission to be be there, and that they were there to do a couple of player profiles before the final. Roy admitting that the pressure is getting to him. Then Duncan appears on the training pitch. There is good news. If the bone knits properly, good news about his brother, I should say, if the bone knits properly, there is every chance his brother will play again. Duncan, though, does not want to be in the squad as he is not sure that he can keep his cool. Roy has a message to all of his players, and we see them gathered around as Roy gives his speech. Rubbish. You're an important central defender, and you'll do as I say, and that goes for the rest of you. If anyone's got any ideas about getting even for Glenmore, you'll never kick another football for Melchester, not while I'm the manager. As Roy walks away, we see Vic Guthrie in a huddle with Rob Richards and Blackie, and he's saying, but we just can't stand there and take it if Real come gunning for us. And that is where I'm going to choose to leave this part 3. We've got Rovers in the final of the Cup Winners' Cup. They seem that we've got a new keeper in Andy Styles, and their form is great, but we have to wonder what the effect and the manner of that semi-final victory for Real Santana against Glenmore Rangers will have on the Rovers squad. I'm going to leave it here, and all I'm going to say about part 4 and this final, if you think you've experienced football or comic book football, trust me, you haven't until you relive this final. Wow.
Wow, Tangent. That's incredible. What a superb build-up to the final. I'm sure everyone's on the edge of their seats or whatever they're on at the moment.
I can't wait. I think it's going to be very interesting.
How do you do it, Paul? How do you do it?
Wow.
Drugs.
You sound like the secret love child of Murray Walker. You get so excited.
Do you know what? And I think everybody laughs, but do you know what? I lose myself in it. When I was rereading the stories, and I was kind of, as you guys know how I work, I kind of make notes and stuff. I completely immersed into the story. So yeah, loving it. Absolutely loving it.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, we'll look forward to the next installment in episode 97.
Yeah.
Look forward to that.
I wonder why they decided to change it from cousin to brother for the impact, or
They just got it wrong, didn't they? I think
it is really interesting because in this story, you know, we've had the continuity with the Carlos Villa story saying that he took Roy out in a Cup Winners' Cup match, which, well, remember, Roy had actually said it was a European Cup match. Then Carlos Villa in the same strip says it's a Cup Winners' Cup match. We did the research. It was the Cup Winners' Cup, but they certainly didn't play that team. Now we've got the name change of Real Santander to Santana. And as you say, also that as well. So I do find these little nuances quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Neil, really, because clearly it was cousin, and it was always going to be cousin, and then I think you kind of think it was a mistake because they would have kept it. They still could have kept it as cousin, and the impact still would have been, but it's going to be much more of an impact if it's your brother, isn't it? Yeah.
I wonder if actually initially the cousin part was the mistake.
Could be.
You know.
Well,
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Well, the only thing I will say again though is we finally got some Cup Winners' Cup action because we've done 2 parts and we hadn't even had Cup Winners.
It's been a while.
Yeah,
brilliant. That's superb stuff. Right, okay. Well, moving along the running order, I'm looking forward to this one. So
yes,
it's Bygone, Brinsden, Berrigan, and then it's Bullet Sports Special. Do you want to tell us about it, Neil?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one because it's a Bullet Sports Special. It's called. It's a comic. It seems like it's released as a holiday special. If you're on YouTube, you'll probably be able to see the front cover from it. Maybe.
I'm going to try and find it. Yeah. But go on, you keep
I mean,
going.
I've got a scan if you want it at the end. But
Okay.
yeah, it was a comic apparently that a weekly comic that was made by DC Comics. And it's from 1976 to 1978 when I've done some research about it. It was and this special is from 1977, so it is like a summer special. There was only 141 issues, or 147, issues. I can't read my own writing when I had to Wikipedia it for the information. It's in a similar style to Spike and Champ. It seems I've not got an actual weekly comic. I've only got the special. But when I've flicked through some images online, it seems like it's part of the DC camp, so they are similar to them comics.
Can
Um,
I? Sorry, Bygone, because
yeah,
Matt's just found it there, and I'm enjoying this already because it's all completely new to me. But when I see that, and you kind of showed us a little bit before we started the recording, it actually reminds me very much of Scoop,
right, yeah,
to
yeah,
be quite honest, which is the
yeah,
DC Thompson world. So yeah,
yes, I think it's like and what do you, I've tried a bit of each of them, to be honest.
yeah.
Not just
I should
concentrating on football,
I
it's
should
got all the different
say,
sports.
yeah, sorry to interrupt. I should say this is the comicpriceguide.co.uk. I'm just using their site, so thanks for
Mm.
letting me use your site just for just in case. But go on, just show the cover. Go on, carry on, Neil.
No, no, it's fine. So it's just like it seems it wasn't just a comic that featured just sports as well. It was like all actions. And it's got it seems to be introduced by a lead character called Fireball, who's apparently a secret agent who was brought up by his foster parents, and he became this secret agent, and he introduces all the stories. Apparently, in this special, introduce each story as though it's like his friend, and there's a story with him as well. And I quite like that setup. That it's not just a comic; it's got this chap called Fireball. He features on every story,
Mhm.
introducing them or as a character. Um, and the other, when I've been reading on Wikipedia as well, with this comic called Bullet, Fireball's introducing them, but he did not have a main story called Fireball. In order to get the main story of Fireball, you had to become a member of a group, Fireball Club, where you received in the post a red envelope with the story inside it, which I think is quite a neat feature, really. So
Wow.
rather than just getting a membership, you became a member and you got a story in a red envelope from Wikipedia.
It is interesting
Um,
that the because I think this was brought out around about the same sort of time as Action was by IPC Fleetway, and it feels like a that kind of same type of comic, like action, adventure, kind of gritty,
yeah,
kind of thing. I think this lasted a little bit longer, but
yeah, because Action
yeah,
got banned, did it not?
Actually got
yeah.
banned, but then it did come back briefly, and then it merged into
Diluted.
Battle Action. Yeah,
Yeah, it's very diluted, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Parents complained
yeah,
about Action. But just looking through, as I say, Wikipedia and what's online, the weekly comic had several stories of adventure, and one of them stories was a story called Twister.
yeah.
It
Twisty.
was about a player with a crooked left foot, which he also features in one of the Football Picture Story monthly, called Twister. And I know in Red Dagger that story was also in there. Several stories. Yeah, that's the one from Red Dagger, and it was also one of the Football Picture Story
Well,
monthlies as well in a
that
brief version.
we have mentioned this before,
Yeah, I was just going to
actually.
say, been
By
discussed before.
the Red Dagger is the Football Picture Story monthlies are taken from the Red Dagger.
Yeah,
They're reprints of this Red Dagger. In fact, they're abridged versions of it.
And I'm guessing without looking that it's probably just an amalgamation of the stories that are originally in Bullet.
Yeah, yeah. Which
I would
I never
assume.
even
I
aware
haven't
of
looked at them.
Bullet, but
I've
yeah,
got
it's got
digital
to be.
copies, but
Mm,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, it's fantastic, isn't it, how all these stories are
yeah.
in here, and then obviously Football Picture Story Monthly then released a couple of them. But yeah, so obviously I've never picked up a weekly comic, but I did for some reason I saw this Bullet sports special on eBay, and I thought I'd never seen it before. I was intrigued by the opening, the old picture on the main story is a chap who looks very similar to Duncan McKay, whichever. It look because he's got a headband
Mackay.
on, kicking a ball. But there's also like an athletics story, a tennis story, a motocross story, and a looks like a Jeep racing story. So I thought I'm gonna buy it. It was only a couple of pounds, and to be honest, I wasn't disappointed with it. I've seen them go for a lot of money as well, but mine unfortunately was incomplete because um, Malcolm Allison picture was in the center pages, so I was missing two pages
Yeah.
Malcolm McDonald. Oh yeah, yeah,
because what they did was they put the is it Malcolm
Yeah,
McDonald?
Malcolm
Sorry, not
McDonald. Yeah,
Malcolm
yeah.
Allison. Sorry, Malcolm McDonald in the center, and on either side of it was the storyline. So I was missing a bit of the stories, but
Oh right.
I went on I can't remember who it was now, but I went if they're on here. Thank you very much if they're listening. I went on one of the Facebook groups and asked if anybody had the middle pages, and somebody scanned them for me and sent them me, and
Oh, that's
I
nice.
managed to photocopy them. So I've actually my middle pages are actually the copies, but it makes it complete. So yeah, I was really grateful for that. But yeah, so the special starts, and it's the chap Fireball who's actually introducing the comic. And I'll just show my screen now, and I'll send a couple of scans
Oh yeah,
across.
thanks.
It's got a picture of him on there, and it's actually a real life person on the picture. So I should imagine it might be the editor or one of the backroom staff who.
He's a proper kind of Burt Reynolds is the person
Yeah, I
who
was
Looks a
just
bit
going to
like
say,
introduced
David
online.
Wilkie, doesn't it?
A bit of David Wilkie, yeah, exactly.
yeah, it looks like he's got a drawn on moustache as well on the thing.
Yeah.
But he's saying how he's really welcome to be introducing all these stories. And he says, yeah, the editors asked me to wrap my brains for a bunch of exciting sports stories. And he says, I've jumped at the chance and I hope that you like them. So from the stories, I'm not going to go into each story. I'm only going to concentrate on one story today. But the stories that are in there is a story called Juggernaut Jones. It's about a young truck driver who plays for a third division team, and he gets called up to play for in a massive game for them. And as well as playing for the game, he manages to stop a crime just before on his way to the game as he's delivering some goods. He stops a crime and he plays in the big match, and he helps them win the match by scoring the winning goal. He's only 18, but he's a truck driver. Then it moves on, and there's an interview with Malcolm McDonald as well, and a nice picture. So they did a pull-out poster and a sports special picture. And again, I'll send a couple of scans over to
Yeah,
you, Matt.
please, and I'll stick it on the Facebook groups and stuff like that. Thanks, Neil.
The next story that features is a partially coloured picture called "The First 4 Minute Miler," and he's saying about this chap who runs in his spare time. And it's quite similar to the stories like Alf Tupper, that kind of storyline. He's a chap who runs, it's an amateur runner, and they're trying to beat that 4 minute mile. He's been in training for it. And as he's in training, he ends up thwarting a crime, but as he runs after the criminals, um, he gets injured, and unfortunately, he can never have a chance to run the 4 minute mile. But as he was chasing after this chap as he was running, one of his friends had timed him and realised that he'd run a mile in under 4 minutes, but no, it never got recorded. So unfortunately, he did run the mile in under 4 minutes, catching the criminal, but he ended up with a severe injury doing it, and he never got a chance to run against the clock again, which is a quite a
Ah,
neat story, different.
yeah, yeah.
Then Fireball has got his own little story where he's in a race of death in the toughest deserts and mountains of Belgravia, wherever that is, the capital of Kantara. He's in
Oh
this
yeah,
race
I've
in
been
there,
there.
which I've followed of that. So obviously there's some dastardly men trying to stop him from taking part in the race, which he eventually wins as well because he is Fireball. Which is really interesting. I think it's great. I love the fact that he's like this special agent and he introduces these stories because they're all his friends.
I think he was linked
Um,
to I think the comic was when I read about this, it's linked to Warlord. And I
that I
think
was just going to
there
say,
there was like a secret agent in there called John Flint or something like that who similar kind of thing. And I think he was supposed to be that kind of character for this
yeah, I
comic.
mean, I was just going to say it did end up merging into Warlord
Right.
towards the end as well. So it must have like been like a sister comic or a
Yeah,
companion
yeah, I think it was. Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I think it was just hard, like in the 70s and early 80s to try and get these comics to be purchased by people who were interested, because I
Well,
think
also,
there was a lot of comics out there at the time
Mm.
as
and I
well.
think, well, as we know that some did, well, definitely did it Fleetway. They did the Hatch Match and Dispatch, didn't they? So they kind of brought out new comics, and
Mm.
then they just chose the most popular stories from that new comic about a year or two down the line, and then merged it. Hence
See
the
what?
great news. So you kind of, yeah, you have a stronger overall comic, I guess. And I don't know if that was the reason for this particular comic. I don't think so. Um,
I
they're
think
just
they
trying to
just
appeal
went
to
for all the
a
genres,
different,
though,
I'm,
didn't they?
a
They
I'm,
just
different
went for
market.
like the action genre, the sports genre, the football, just try to grab.
Well, just trying to get more market, yeah, yeah, from
Yeah.
other comics.
I mean, at the
I'm,
moment, I am reading. I've just purchased a lot of Roy the Rovers from 1992, 93, which I've never read, and I'm only like several months in, and it's just I'm into 1993, and how many stories there's been in the last 6 months. Playmaker has ended abruptly, and another
Yeah.
story's come in, and then straight away now they're asking, did you enjoy this story? Is there any other stories you would like? And it's just, I think, obviously, it's going. You can tell which, obviously, in hindsight, which way the magazine's going, the comic's going. But it must have been hard to try and capture people's imagination. I mean, we've just had, that fantastic Roy the Rovers story with all the action, and there's nothing similar in the comic, to that. And it must be
Yeah,
hard to recreate things all the time and grab people's interest.
I think so.
But this, like, I mean, it's a bit like that birthday special they did on the last podcast. I think it's just they're just trying to attract readers and seeing what they do enjoy. And I think this Bullet Sports special is probably at the time they might have been losing out on people buying the comic, and they try to find out what are people interested, so they've put this together.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
One of the
definitely.
other sports special stories is Speedway Tearaway. It's a youngster and he's battling with his brother. One of them's a star brother who's a great speedway rider, and he's battling against him. I'm not interested in speedway racing, but the artwork is absolutely fantastic, and it's in colour, and it draws your attention, and I really enjoyed reading it. But again, it's Fireball introducing it, and it starts off the brothers don't like each other because they're both speedway drivers. And then it ends up that he says that after the race, they get on and they make an unbeatable team. So again, I'm not interested. The last story is called The Big Catch, and it's about a young lad who goes fishing. Um, and it shows you some fishing tips and how he catches his fish and he wins a competition. And it's similar to a story that I've just been reading in Spike as well about a young lad fishing. So again, a similar story that appears in one of DC Comics, one of the other comics. Yeah, it's a rare. If you can ever find a good copy of it on eBay, um, I'd recommend that you try and purchase copies of it. Sometimes it pops up and people are just selling random copies of holiday specials, and I've seen it a couple of times where it's being sold as a batch rather than named Bullet
Oh,
Sport
okay.
Special. Because I think
Yeah.
when if you look for Bullet Sport Special, they sell for like 20-30 pounds, and I
Yeah.
think it's because they're
Wow,
that
really?
scarce.
There's one up there at the moment. It's 20 quid.
Yeah.
It's over
Mm,
20 quid.
So
Yeah.
if you ever do see a copy going cheap, just try and grab a copy. Again, it's
I'll give you a fiver, Neil. Take a fiver?
Yeah.
No? It is
what to read it
Christmas.
to you over the podcast. Yeah, no problem. I can do that. That'll
Well,
down for Ben.
I've been doing a little bit of research whilst because I honestly,
You bought
Bygone.
five since he's been talking.
Well, let's not. Well, I don't really want to give those details away, but there's a few of them on eBay. But there were actually 147 of the weekly comic. It
Right.
was published between 1976 and 78. It was first published on the 14th of February 1976 for 7 pence.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I love this because you know something. This is a completely new comic to
Yeah.
me, and I never realised that this is where probably the birthplace of Twisty. Yeah,
Yeah.
With Twisty, and I think Kid Cox was another one.
what was that?
That was a major football story
Hmm.
in
Yeah, and I
Bullet.
think we featured him, didn't we? He was
Wow.
in a
Is
football
he
Yeah,
club
something
story
else?
monthly
Where is
special.
yeah.
he?
I think he was in Scoop as well, Kid
Yeah.
Cox, but he was
Kid Cox,
then
that's it. Yeah,
made the Football Picture Story monthly, one of the two specials,
Yeah.
if not
that's
both of
right.
them
I
He
actually.
was
thought
in
the
both,
name.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So the story that I'm going to just quickly go through today, which is really enjoyable, and it's fantastic artwork by Barry Mitchell, who's obviously the Marx Brothers and many, many more. It's a story called The Guts and Glory Man, and once again, it's introduced by Fireball, and it says, Manchester Town, my local club, they're riding high in the first division now, but not long ago they were struggling in Division Two. So Manchester Town, we have Manchester features quite a lot over
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Manchester City, Manchester United.
Famous name.
So, what I like about this is they've used the actual Old Trafford and just put on the top of it like a big banner saying Manchester Town. If you can
Yeah, yeah.
see on
Oh,
there,
okay.
so
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
looks like
Yeah.
real picture with that there. So the story starts and Fireball is dropping off a player outside the ground, and he calls him. Good luck, Mark. The best of luck, old son. He said, with your guts, much my help wasn't needed. He says, thanks, Fireball, for helping me. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here now. So he just walked straight into the ground, goes on the football pitch, and there's on the football pitch, the manager and I think the director is on the pitch, and he says, the director's saying, as club director, I've got to warn you, Mathers, if we don't have some form of FA Cup run, we'll go to the wall. And the manager says, as the manager, I can only tell you that we'll do our best. Now, and as he turns round, this chap, this Mark, stood there and he says, my name's Mark Faber, Mr. Mathers. I've come to play for Manchester Town. And he says, play for us without a trial, you're joking. So then at this point, Mark picks up a ball, takes it past a few players, runs into the box and hits a ball past the keeper. And everyone's saying, wow, he's incredible. So the manager says, that's brilliant, brilliant. Come to my office and we'll talk terms. And the man and Mark's looking a bit sheepish and says, tomorrow I'll sign tomorrow. And just as he gets out of sight, he collapses to the ground holding his chest. And he says, I have to get away. Terrible pain. It'll soon pass, just like the doctor said. And then in the next scene, we pick up and it's on the football pitch, and it's the cup tie. Saturday's here already, and Mark's on the pitch ready to kick off. And he says, "Right, middle of the table, second division opposition. 3 goals will take us through." So the game kicks off, and straight away, Manchester race up the pitch, and Mark's shouting for the ball. Pass it through now. He gets the ball and scores. Norfolk City haven't even touched the ball, and they're a goal down. Then next minute, the ball's being crossed in. Mark's flinging himself through the air and connects with his head. 2-0. 2 minutes played and it's 2-0. The next thing you know, in the third minute, 3-0. Mark Faber's made it 3-0 and he's scored 3. We haven't scored 3 in one game all season.
He's doing
We haven't
okay,
scored
isn't
3 in one game.
he? In 3 minutes.
In
Brilliant,
3 minutes, three
start.
goals. But at half time, the fans are noticing that he's slowed down a lot and they're like, what's wrong with him? He's been shuffling on like an old man after 5 minutes. And he said, he's scored 3 goals. What more do you want? Half
Yes,
time, they're in
true.
the changing room, and Mark Faber's already stripping off and heading for the shower. And the man is like, what do you think you're doing? Where are you going? He says, I'm going home. We've done enough. You'll win now, and I'll be available for the next round of the cup. He says, what about the league matches in between? He says, I can play for you in the cup, but nothing more. The next scene is Manchester Town held on to the first half lead and made it into the next round of the cup, where they were due to play First Division Westford Albion. And the manager's like, "You're here then, Mark. Now I can finish off our team talk." And he went, "Put me down as a substitute. I don't want to be playing until late in the game." Nobody's arguing the fact that he hasn't been there for the last 3 games. So he said, then what next thing you know, Mark's taking over the team talk. He says, right, lads, what we need is 2 of you Mark in the centre half. He's the one who makes Westford tick. And the manager's like, just listen to him. You'd think he was the manager. The lads believe in him, though. That's the main thing. So Mark's plan was working perfectly. It says 0-0, only 5 minutes to go, and the manager's like, brilliant, we'll get a replay with any luck. But Mark Faber starts stripping off and he says, there'll be no replay, I'm going on in a minute. And just as he says this, a player gets fouled and he says, a free kick, here's my chance. So he comes onto the pitch, they take the injured player off on a stretcher and he says, right, dummy it, I'm right behind you. So they take the free kick, dummies him, passes it, but the player then passes it back to Mark. Mark strikes it first time and it just goes inside the post. 1-0, game over. And then Fireball picks up their story, he says, and so it went on. Helped by Mark Faber's strange short burst of brilliance, the lowly second division Manchester continued on their march to Wembley in the FA Cup final. But every time, it's just been within 5-minute bursts. Faber did it again in 5 minutes. And he says he got through to the semi-final. Last 5 minutes, Faber did it again and scored the winner. So next, it's like a Jimmy Hill type character talking on the TV. And he says, can Manchester humble mighty Middlesfield? Will Mark Faber pull them through with his usual 5 minutes of magic? So Mark Faber's watching the TV and he says, there's no more talk of 5 minutes, not after today. And so at 10, there's a lovely shot and it's 10-3 on FA Cup final Saturday. Both teams are coming out of the tunnel, which is brilliant because it's just behind the goal. Like, remember how Wembley?
Yeah.
Really good stadium. So it says here, no more scrapping to make ends meet for Manchester Town, not after this match. In the first 5 minutes, they're full of Faber magic, but unfortunately he couldn't score because he realised Middlesfield are a top side. So he smacks the ball really hard, it's going in top corner, but the keeper saves it, and it's a world-class save by the keeper. Then again, the ball comes over, Faber heads it, and he just knocks it past the post. And he says, 5 minutes gone. I should be running out of steam. And the manager, sorry, just a minute. 5 minutes gone, and the defender's thinking he should be running out of steam soon, I hope.
Mm.
But no, Faber's everywhere. He's saving the ball off the line, hitting shots off the crossbar, playing his mates through. And then we're into the last minute of the game where it's still 0-0. Faber's running through the midfield, making a run off the other centre forward, and he says, "Here, Chris, here's the ball, then give it back to me." And everyone's screaming, "Mark Faber, Mark Faber." And as he gets the ball, he dummies it and lets it through to his fellow centre forward. And he says, "Yo, Joe, push it through the middle." So Joe runs through the ball, plays a lovely ball through, and it's between Faber and the keeper, and they're both looking at him. And he says, "I've got to reach it. I can't stop now." And just as he reaches the ball, he knocks it past the keeper and it rolls into the net. But Faber's fell to the ground, clutching his chest, and a hush fell on the stadium as he lay there still. And they're like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" It was the winning goal for the full-time whistle blew seconds later. But for Mark, there was no celebrating. And the stretcher bearers have got hold of him and they said, "Hurry, Fred, his heart's stopped. We must get him to the heart resuscitator." They get him into the changing room, but it's too late. The doctor announces he's dead. And then Fireball comes in and he says, "Perhaps this will help you understand." And on the next page, it's a picture of the newspaper, and it says, "On the scrap heap, killer heart disease cancels young soccer star's £200,000 transfer and ends his career. Football's my life," he said, but there's not a team in the land who'll take me on. No manager in his right mind would sign him, says another manager. And it appears that Mark Faber was really called Joe Hudson, a young footballer who couldn't be signed due to a heart condition. And the doctors said that football could kill him at any time. Fireball
Wow.
picks up the story again. He says, "Yes, I knew Mark Faber's secret all along. He asked me to help him fix a fake identity. Mark could have been alive today if he'd stopped playing football, but football was his life, and how much alive would he have been without it?" So unfortunately, Mark Faber died doing the thing that he loved. And he says, but the success that came inspired his club to become the team they are, and it wouldn't have happened without him. And then it's the end of that story, which I think
Wow.
it's quite a deep
Yeah.
story, isn't it?
Mm.
For a
Well,
young
as we were saying, it's quite, I mean, yeah, action was quite gritty and dark, wasn't it? So I suppose it's the same sort of ilk, isn't it? Of
yeah,
that kind of wow. I wasn't expecting that, I must admit, Neil.
No,
yeah.
no.
No, I mean, I've recently
Merry
started.
Christmas.
I bought a few Scoop, and in one of the Scoop stories, Stark had something similar. He was playing and he collapses during the game
Yes.
and he died. His heart stopped and they resuscitated him, and then he came back. But that one, I thought, especially in today's football, we hear more and more stories of these
Yeah.
people who
Mm.
are resting on the pitch, like
Mm.
Ericsson, and unfortunately, there was one in Italy the other week, and I just thought, wow, that's bit close to home, that isn't it?
Mm.
Like because it does happen. But yeah, I thought it was a great story about a young lad who's come in. I mean, I don't know how many times you can tell the boss that I'll only play in the cup games and you'll
Mhm.
never see me for training or anything like that.
Mm.
But you can understand the reasons why he had a high impact and then
Yeah.
at just 5 minute bursts. But yeah, I thought it was a great gritty story, and I don't think many other comics would have touched that story.
And he lived his dream,
Mm.
didn't he? So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
what a way
So.
to go.
Yeah,
Mm.
as I say, there is another story in that, another football story in that called sorry, just let me open up. Juggernaut Jones. So I might
Oh,
cover
yeah.
that story next time as well because it will be
Mm.
it's another just it's only in this sports special because it appears that none of the stories that are in the main comic are actually featured in the sports special.
All right.
So
Strange.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I think you're right because I was flicking through some earlier because I knew you were going to do this. And yeah,
yeah,
Juggernaut
not even a
Jones
twisty
didn't.
story or
No,
anything
no,
like
no,
that.
Mm.
So
no, no. What?
as I say, I think
Yeah,
it's got it does read a little bit like they were trying different stories out to see if any of them would have been
probably.
popular. Obviously, they couldn't have used Guts and Glory because unless it was his cousin or brother, they'd have brought back for it. But
Yeah, yeah. Or maybe the prequel to it.
yeah,
I
or
don't
the,
know.
Mm.
the
Yeah, yeah,
prequel.
yeah.
But yeah, or a ghost. It could have been a ghost story.
Could have been. Yeah,
You
we've
love
had
a
those.
ghost
We've had
story,
those.
Bygone. You love a ghost
Oh,
story.
I do
Well, it's
like a ghost
Christmas.
story.
Christmas
Yeah.
ghosts. We've got the
Mm.
Ghost of Podcast past here.
Mm.
But yeah, I
Voice of
really
Reason.
enjoyed that, and I hope the listeners did too. As I say,
Uh,
you may not have heard of Bullet, but
Well, can I just say, Bygone, that's what I loved about it. It's always great, and I think I did actually a few episodes back ask listeners if there's any comics that we've never mentioned that they know that have featured football stories, and you've just produced one there yourself that I've never heard of myself. So yeah, beautiful, loved it. It's always great to hear about these new things, and I've got to phone the bank manager after this podcast.
Another tip might
change numbers
be
again.
if you are looking for it on eBay, try different variations of bullet in one L double T. If people have misspelt it and anything like
I've
that.
already,
Right.
yeah, they're not cheap. They're not.
He's bought 6.
They they're sort of ranging from sort of £4.50 to sort of like the £5, if not £7 range on buy it now prices. So
Okay.
which
Well, we've just
obviously
added
to get
another £10 on top of those.
yeah,
because people will
exactly.
go and try and buy
So
them.
then try and pick up 147 of them is going to be quite interesting. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, I really enjoyed that. Thank you very much, Neil. That was
Lovely.
super.
Sorry, Matt. Just
Yeah,
one,
no,
it's
go on.
really weird. You might have seen when Neil was doing that. I did actually, because I remembered, because I've been doing the covers of the Football Picture Story monthlies on the Facebook site, and it just made me think of this, which was Local Hero, which is Football Picture Story monthly number 45. But
Oh, yeah,
just
I've seen that.
quickly, the first line: Manchester United are the club, the richest, most powerful, most successful setup in the game. But again, that name, Manchester, and the Harry Slade was the character there. But I just remembered the Manchester. But
Manchester City.
Yeah.
I've heard Manchester City in another.
City's in We Are United.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Well,
Thanks, Simmo.
I think Klein played for him, or Powell played for him, I think, didn't he? In a few Football Picture Story monthlies. I'm sure he played for Manchester City.
So yeah, it's great, the connections, isn't it?
Yeah.
Across different comics, different stories. Superb. Well, yeah, brilliant, Neil. Excellent. That's the show, guys. That's
Yeah.
episode 96. So let's go around and let's do the socials. So, Paul, did you want to go and do Facebook sites?
I'll do the Facebook sites, and obviously you've got our own one, which is the Champ We Are United and Football Picture Story monthly fans. And then you've got the fantastic Roy of the Rovers comic 40 years on, in brackets Melchester Rovers, from friend of the show Ed Taylor. There's also the Mighty World of British comics, and Striker World as well. If I can, just for 5 minutes, just want to make mention.
Yeah, of course.
Unfortunately, on Striker World, had some very sad news that Michael Alexander Wall passed away. I obviously just want to extend everybody in the pod's condolences to Michael and his family. Now, I didn't know Michael personally, but he was a massive person on the Striker World and the Striker World striker. And I just want to say, reading all the wonderful tributes and comments, Michael seemed like a fantastic guy. And what I love is everybody says at times I think he was a bit controversial and was open to arguments. But it's great to hear that, his passion for Striker, and even Pete Nash wrote a fantastic tribute and respect to Michael, and said that Michael was always hassling him about ideas. But the reason I wanted to mention about the clash, though, everybody mentions that they kind of almost had arguments, or shall we say passionate conversations with Michael, but it always ended in the right way, and it was just Michael's absolute passion for Striker. So a sad loss, and I just wanted to mark that from us, and obviously condolences to his family. But really lovely reading all those tributes, and Michael is a big loss to, well, I'm going to say the wider comic book world. He's obviously really played a lot for the Striker world. So that's Michael Alexander Wall. Sorry, rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Well said, Paul. Superb. Thanks for that. Okay, so that's the Facebook sites. Moving on, I'll do the X and the Blue Sky. So X is @champ_R. That's @champ_RARE. And remember, you can send in your voice notes on that as well for the 100th episode. So please do. Then for Blue Sky, we have at champcomics.bsky.social. So you can find us on there. Not as many people on that yet, but so we're on there. I'll do the YouTube as well. So YouTube, we've got Champ We Are United on YouTube as well. So if you want to see our ugly mugs, we're on
We're
there.
expanding across all
At-
social platforms.
We'll be BBC,
No
BBC
escape.
One at 6:30. And then after the King's speech yesterday, I hope everybody enjoyed the show when we were on there as well. Um, and yeah, so YouTube, and I'll do the Pro Board site as well. So
Sure.
we've got a Pro Board site. So we've got the Champ, we've got the original forum where you've got 55,000 posts. So we're there. Just search Champ We Are United Pro Boards, and you'll find us on there as well. So you can't avoid us, really. You can try,
No,
but you
can
can't
try.
avoid us. Yeah. Keep
You can
trying.
run, but you can't hide.
Can't hide, exactly.
So it's a reminder then to send in, for 100th episode, the email address. So that's champweareunited@gmail.com. So that's champweareunited@gmail.com. And remember, let us know your favourite moments from the shows, features, interviews, and if you've got any questions for us. But we will give you other ways of getting in touch before the 100th show. It'd be great if you can do that. So that's the show. So let's go around all my co-hosts today. So this has been brilliant having him back. I really enjoyed the first feature, the first in the 87. So strap yourselves in. But it's great. So Simmo, it's great having you back, mate. Your thoughts?
It's good to be back. Thank you for having me back after dipping out there for a while with the various issues. Hopefully, I will earn my place back in the team on a permanent basis.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
Matt puts on his Joe Pearson.
It's a strong start, but you've got to be consistent. So let's see.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's it. No good playing well one good performance followed by 4 bad, is it?
Well, no. It sounds like the Millwall team. Moving on to Bygone, Bygone. Neil, your thoughts?
I really enjoyed recording tonight's podcast. It's been great with Simmo again. I'm going to be really invested in this We Are United story. Looking forward to listening to the rest of them. 87 episodes, which is fantastic. I don't know if you're going to cover the merger into Victor as well, which
I would have thought so. Yeah, because I've got access to them as well. So
brilliant.
It'll go right up to the end of the original story.
Oh,
I think we're going to go the distance.
We're going to go the distance.
And again,
if you start, you've got to continue, haven't you?
Yeah.
Then we might have to call Ridders off the bench for the picture story month, please.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, actually, you say that. I mean, so we, without over promising, Ridders hopefully will be back for the 100th episode for Ridders fans out there. So more on that to come, but hopefully he'll be back for that. Yeah, superb.
And I really enjoyed Tangents. Roy the Rovers European Cup Winners' Cup exploits, and I must admit the tactical way Roy changed the game of swapping Rob Richards around as well. It's probably I've never seen that from Roy on a regular basis. So
because he was injured, Bygone. That's why.
Well, yeah. But yeah, really enjoyed tonight. Thank you very much. Yeah, and as I say, I've enjoyed sharing the Bullets stories with you.
Good stuff. And to the tangential one.
Yeah,
your final words.
As the guy said, fantastic to have Simmo back in the fold and bringing us, as we all started, the We Are United world to life. Bygone showing me even new comic book stories out there, football stories. God, more to search out. Loving it, and of course, enjoying my Rovers run. And thanks so much for hosting as well as ever, Matt. So another one's in the bag, as they say. Loved every minute of it.
Great stuff. And and
it certainly shows, Paul. It certainly shows.
It does. It certainly does. It's fantastic stuff. So, well, listeners, hope you enjoyed that. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Christmas break.
Yes.
We won't now be seeing you, or you won't be hearing from us anyway until the new year. So it remains on me to kind of say Happy New Year. I hope you enjoy the rest of your turkey sandwiches and the mince pies, and we'll be back very soon in 2025. Happy New Year. See you.
See
Bye.
you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
See ya. See ya.